Welcome everybody to my travel vlog, and basically MSI took a few content creators over for Computex this year and to visit their home turf over in Taipei, Taiwan. Me, Tech Team GB from the UK, Wendell from the US, and Blunty3000 from Australia came along as well, and they're all great guys and were fantastic company on this trip. And it's continued stuff that's really helping me out in their Dragon Squad. I'll also warn everybody that this video is going to be an example of how not to pronounce the local place names, and I'll try and give it my best shot though. Anyway, jump starting into a 14-hour flight. We stopped briefly at Amsterdam and then back on track straight to Taiwan. We touched down at 11 AM with a lot of the day ahead of us. First up, we just took a look around the hotel's area, which was in the Jinpu district, and found a local market. There was meat shopping, bartering, and oh boy, was it hot down there. And we tried to get our bearings a little bit and headed to a KFC, which, on first thoughts, would be something familiar. There's also a little custard tart thing that came with pretty much every meal as well. It wasn't the 3-piece meal I was used to in the UK, I'll just say that. We then got onto the Taipei Metro, and instantly I realised how much this system put the London Underground to shame. The train always stops in the same spot, there's a barrier that opens, and they also have queuing lines. And honestly, as a Brit, it's hard to admit that some people are better at queuing than you, but they really took the biscuit with these lines, and the queues worked. People were getting off on one side, people going on the other, and as a Brit I can only envy that sort of order and queuing savvy. Most stops in the metro line were names of sights to see, so it was pretty much pick somewhere to get off at and have a look. So we hopped off at something called Longshan Temple, which was a Buddhist temple I think, and in the entrance was an impressive waterfall, and incense pretty much filled the air. Across the whole temple site there was a mishmash of tourists and people coming to worship, and interestingly people had left offerings of food on the tables, and it wasn't just sort of homemade things, it was also like full packs of different treats. I don't really know whether these get passed on to the homeless people afterwards or what happens to this food. We then decided to trek on foot to Camera Valley to meet up with Wendell, who was getting a lens fix. And it's called Camera Valley because for blocks there are only camera shops. Canon, Nikon and Pentax flags are waving pretty much in every storefront as far as you can see. We also went around the surrounding area, and two truths that I learnt going around the city of Taipei was that no space was wasted. Every space of the blocks was taken by shops, stores or vendors. And the second truth was that every block had a 7-Eleven on it. I don't know why, but 7-Eleven seems to be huge there. Literally every block has one. You only have to walk a few yards to get to the next one. We also passed the Republic of China government building, where there was a clear view of Taipei's tallest building in the distance, somewhat almost fogged out, and I thought this was the perfect shot, so I took it. And whilst I was taking it, the soldier behind us began to bang their gun, shout at us and blow his whistle. I couldn't understand anything he was saying, so we were quick to scurry on our way. As evening drew in, we headed to the Guangua Tech Mall, and around this place, computer shops everywhere. It was like Camera Valley, but replace that with computer parts. Seriously, I've never been anywhere before so perfect to nerd out about computer parts. And the mall itself had lots of floors, each one dedicated to something different. Virtual reality, gaming, drones, and at the very top there was even a store dedicated to the anime series Gundam, and outside posted was a person-sized mech. I was going to say a life-size mech, but obviously the mechs are huge, so it wasn't actually life-size. Actually taking a look at the prices, I think most of the stuff in there seemed to be more of a showroom than anything else. The next day we still had a free day of doing our own thing before the Computex show started, and we took another stroll out into the city. We headed to a close metro on our line, the Blue Line, to the Taipei 101 building and the district surrounding it. Out of our Blue Line stop, there was quite a walk, and the hugeness of the 101 building, the highest point in the city, made it look a lot closer than it actually was. But the trek was enjoyable itself, as it was through some scenic gardens. Andrew from Tech Team GB, who I was with, went off to some press conference, but I decided to go up the tower and see the city from a cloud's perspective. I only got the footage coming down the elevator, but it has the fastest one in the world, and it goes 600 meters a minute. And I got to the top floor in about 36-37 seconds, and the way down was slower, but I'm guessing that's just because you brake. Whilst you're on this elevator, you can literally hear your ears pop and things, but because the lift is so smooth, you don't really feel that much of the speed increase or anything. At the very top, I got some stunning views of the mega city that is Taipei and its many districts. What you can see from the top of the 101 building is the city is pretty damn compact, but almost squished to the edges of a basin that is surrounded by green mountains at all sides. You can see the cable cars going into the mountains, the river dividing up New Taipei and Old Taipei, and also the airport in the distance. I decided to try out the Taiwanese craft beer and just kick back and enjoy the views of the city. I will admit I didn't really know whether I was allowed to walk around with the beer, but nobody really spoke English up there and nobody seemed to stop me, so I think it was actually okay. I also took a cheeky selfie at the top of the outdoor observatory, but once again confirmed Brits don't fare well in the sun, especially photographing ourselves. And then after that I checked out the anti-wind, anti-earthquake gyroscope big ball thing, which I'm sure is scientifically awesome, but I didn't know too much about. Later me, Wendell and Andrew all met below the 101 building and ate at Din Tai Fung, a pretty famous restaurant for its dumplings. And we had to take a ticket and wait pretty much an hour or maybe more, but both adding to the taste expectations, and it did show that it must be a very popular place. Whilst I was having a hard time getting used to the taste of Taiwan, that very sort of sweet taste and a lot of other different tastes that I've not really tasted before, my taste buds seemed to be okay with this, and we had green garlic shoots, pork dumplings, and pork slices that were all delicious. After we'd had our fill, we checked out an aptly named night market called Tourist Night Market. Funnily enough, I couldn't actually identify any tourists in there. If anything, it was a local market, but it was very busy indeed. In the previous day, we had stumbled across it mostly empty, and the scooters were using it as a normal road, almost touching people sitting in the cafes along it, and that really shocked me, but nothing could get down there whilst it was a night market. As we woke up to another day, we went to the Computex floor. Most of the computer and gaming related exhibits were at the Nangang Exhibition Centre, a mega show space. I mean, I've been to Insomnia and EGX in the UK at the NEC exhibition centres, but this pretty much dwarfed them. Basically it was the size of an exhibition hall there. I'm guessing something similar to the E3 halls or something like that, but instead of having these single halls, it was stacked on top of each other in sort of a mega multiplex sort of thing. As we got in, our first stop was the MSI booth, where we were shown the new X299 boards for the new lineup of Intel processors. Actually not announced at that point in the show, which was really funny seeing motherboards for CPUs that didn't officially exist. Obviously they've been announced now. There were also some VR backpacks, racing cars, and lots of ultra small form factor PCs that look pretty awesome, and a new triple monitor technology prototype aiming at making the bezels psychologically invisible. You know, like when your brain filters out your nose? They also had some pretty cool mods with a claw machine and a roulette wheel type thing that interacted with their Mystic Light Sync LED system. How could I also forget the booth babes that seem to be fronting every stall at the show? To my complete befuddlement, but to the express excitement of locals, especially when an idol style dance began for a stick of RAM. Memory is RAM, oh dear. In the words of Moss, of course. We took a break midday and went to a buffet in the building, and I had all of the puddings. Seriously, I took one of everything, I really do mean all, and I'd rate all of them a solid 10 out of 10. Later, me and Blunty interviewed each other in front of the Mystic Light booth, but it turned out to be Blunty interviewing me, mostly in all honesty. And that was in front of the new technology linking health bars and games to LEDs, and was pretty damn epic. I actually have some LEDs at home now to try and do the same thing, which I'll set up ETA soon, TM. So, yeah, sometime. At around 5, we were shuffled to a Japanese restaurant. It was quite close to the traditional style with sliding doors, bowing as the servers entered, wooden cups being served green tea, and the chef came in several times to present the meals. I'm not going to lie though, I watch a lot of anime. I went in 100% wanting to enjoy the food. However, there was a barrage of 21 courses, and though I wouldn't claim they were bad at all, the tastes were just so different to me. I just struggled through trying each a bit, but I did feel it was a bit of a marathon just because everything was so different and not what I was used to. There were bits I really liked, where pork was barbecued on top of a leaf, coals brought to you at the table. The next day we went into the mountains, headed to a tea plantation, taking first a small coach to a traditional and less touristy Chinese restaurant, and our tour guide ordered us the dishes, including stinky fermented tofu, which it did live up to its name, and I'll just say I ate a lot of rice on that one. We eventually got to the top of the hills, and the mountains, I'm not really sure what you call them, whether they are mountains or hills, and ditched the bus for a car for the winding roads. The sight from the rest stop was quite stunning though. After winding some pretty narrow roads, we got to the plantation. Outside, a man was picking tea leaves in full sight, and I'm not sure if that is how they still actually harvest them, whether that's what they told us, or if it was just a bit touristy and for show. but we donned the traditional hats and went picking for ourselves. Of course, instantly a caterpillar landed on me and stung me, which is actually like spines in the area of their body, which left marks like that. To me, it looked really exotic because it was like a leaf but with spikes, and to say I was worried was an understatement, but the tour guide assured me that the farmers got stung by them all of the time, which also made me certain this wasn't the job for me. The plantation was on the slopes, and below, at the base of the mountain, was a beautifully blue lake, which we were told was dammed and provided the drinking water for Taipei. We then rolled some of the tea leaves ourselves and saw some of the process of making the tea, and got to keep a bag of our own stuff to make at home. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough space in my main luggage, and then in my hand luggage I was a bit worried that the security might stop me because it was a see-through bag and it looked like something else. The next day we went back to Computex to check out the rest of the show floor. After a little whiz around, spotting a serving bot, a computer submerged in cooled and distilled water, and some record overclocking attempts with liquid nitrogen, I bumped into Wendell and offered to stand in as a cameraman as he was going around talking to a lot of people on the show floor. And promptly I was viewed by a lot of the vendors as a camera bitch, but I was happy to lend a hand. Later had another peek at some of the unexplored areas, finding a May cosplayer, and even walking into a business nether zone where they were showing off fancy digital tills, supersonic card readers, but I didn't last there long. It was too full of business time. There were also so many cool custom PC mods. I saw really Ferris wheels built into PCs, Pokeball type things, and many more epic stuffs. That night we went to TGI Fridays with MSI and met up with some German journos. It was odd being at TGI's in another country, and I suppose in England and Europe the American culture is so spread that it is a little normalized. And while a little special, TGI's is pretty common. However, over there, the locals were going crazy for the bell ringing, announcements and things like that. Basically, they started some music up, and they were basically having a full-on rave at the front of the bar. And it was a really interesting sight for all of us to be perplexed, sitting down and watching that happening. It was just fun to be an observer. On the last day I was pretty much on my own, and I just went on my phone to check some of the tourist traps, and having until the taxi picked us up for the airport at 9 PM, my first stop I went under the underground at Taipei Central Station, where there's a small, almost hidden mall underneath the train station itself. It was so weird, but people were actually down there, and again it reaffirmed my notion that no space is wasted in Taipei. I then hopped off of the Chiang Kai-shek Memorial. Now I know in my last video I got some flack for using the monument in my thumbnail, unbeknownst to me regarding his legacy, but the architecture itself was interesting. It was a grand building with a Taiwanese sun in the central dome, and there were also guards doing a ceremonial march type thing, a bit like the Queen's Guard in front of the statue itself. And politics aside, it did remind me a lot of the grandeur of the Lincoln Memorial. The next stop on the Green Line was Jimendang, a trendy shopping district, and when I got there it was lined with anime and mobile game banners, and there were lots of clothes shops and food joints and things like that. And I had seen on Google there was a noodle place that served in a toilet instead of a bowl, but I just couldn't find it, alas. That was pretty much me done, and onto a KLM Airlines plane for another 14-hour slog. I will say this, Taipei was an amazing city. It had all of the city things, monuments, museums and everything like that on a convenient metro ride, and there were sites I missed too. But the more tranquil tea farming and brewing part and all the rural stuff in the mountains is literally on the edge of the city and easy to get to, so that was really awesome. I don't think I've ever felt safer anywhere else really, and everything was clean and seemed careful, which reminded me of a lot of my time in Germany and Berlin. The only downside was hardly anyone spoke English, not even in the bigger landmarks, and I got by with thanks, sorry, hello in Mandarin. So if you do go there, you might want to brush up on some more key phrases, not like me. But I'd 100% recommend checking it out if you're in the area or are lucky enough to jump across the big drink. Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed the ride. I certainly did whilst I was there. Like the video if you did, subscribe for more, and where should Travel go next? Thank you for watching everybody. Joshino.